Your Pittsburgh Steelers, they just continue to cash in on rivals' mistakes. I'm talking about division rivals, and we're looking at the race for the AFC North. It's usually one of the most toughest battles in the NFL. But there's been some moves or lack of moves by the other teams in this division that are really allowing your Pittsburgh Steelers to run away from it. And the biggest issue in this division, right? None of the other teams brought a good backup quarterback to the roster, and now they're going to pay the price. They already are, and with the main beneficiary being the Pittsburgh Steelers. And what if something happens to Rodgers? What happens to the Pittsburgh Steelers? They actually had the foresight to bring in somebody good. We actually have a competent backup. Rudolph, he can definitely carry the water if needed. I know that you realize all the quarterback moves or lack thereof of the teams within this division, but it really bears digging into the statistics and see what's actually happening. You guys are smart. I'm glad you're here, and let's look at this. Personnel was done incredibly well by this front office across the board. You can't fix everything at once, though, right? A lot of these moves were measured. And as I talked about on this channel, I want to point out something that needs to be done. I'm pounding the table for your Pittsburgh Steelers to make a move at wide receiver before the trade deadline. If Metcalf goes down, this offense is cooked, right? So especially with the Calvin Austin injury, not really a clear word on when he's coming back. Let's absolutely scream in every way that we possibly can. Let's pound the table for the addition of Jacoby Myers. And that's from a Raiders team that should be selling. Why? Great fit, an easy price, likely a third-round pick. The Steelers have tons of third-round picks. And also a guy who can be the ideal number 2 on this team. And talk about contract. He wanted to get extended with the Oakland Raiders. I keep saying Oakland, the Las Vegas Raiders. He wanted to get an extension. He wanted to stay with the team. Guess what? Davis said no. And then a rare thing, he elected to play on an expiring deal. It's done after this year, and try to prove it. He even asked for a trade. He was told no. And guess what? This team is an absolute dumpster fire. Nobody's proving anything this year. Look for the Raiders to be sellers, and the Steelers, they really need to take advantage of this situation. So look at yesterday's video if you really want a detailed breakdown of this. I think he's the absolutely perfect player to bring onto this roster to kind of complete this offense. So let's kind of get into the rest of the division, right? Needless to say, injuries, they have reshaped the landscape in the AFC North. You've got the Cincinnati Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow sidelined with turf toe. That injury alone left shockwaves, right? He might be back in December if he comes back at all. If history has anything, though, this division will still be tightly contested at some point. I don't know if that's going to happen this year. That usually happens. I don't think it's going to happen this year, and it's really due to poor planning at the quarterback position. The Bengals, they reminded everyone of their discrepancy at quarterback. They think trading a 6th-round pick for Joe Flacco is going to solve it. Yes, that Joe Flacco, longtime Baltimore Raven player, MVP of the Super Bowl. I don't know. He hasn't been good in 10 years, has he? Let's look at what the other quarterbacks in the division have been doing, right? Let's just look at straight to statistics, right? You've got Lamar Jackson out. So what did they do to prepare for the possible injury of Lamar Jackson? Cooper Rush. The same Cooper Rush that backed up pretty inadequately Dak Prescott last year for Dallas. And let's see the results. 179 yards and 3 interceptions. That's it. A handful of rushing yards on a team that relies on rushing yards, a depleted and injured offensive line and defensive line. The Baltimore Ravens are going nowhere fast, and without Lamar Jackson, don't expect them to shift it into gear. And precipitating this fall off is having Cooper Rush as your backup, because Lamar Jackson gets hurt almost every year with how he plays the game. So 179 yards and 3 picks, that's not going to move the needle anywhere. Let's look at the Cleveland Browns. You have an overdrafted Dylan Gabriel with a chirpy Shadur Sanders waiting in the wings. A little better, 190 yards and 2 scores, but that was in a loss to the Vikings. They are digging a hole record-wise. And now the Bengals think they're all set now. After the turnover machine of Browning, now they have Joe Flacco. The guy has thrown 6 picks in 4 games of action for the Browns. Plus, he's lost 2 fumbles in the process, winless, with an average of 203 yards, only 2 touchdowns in 4 games. The Bengals think they're going to white-knuckle it here. They think they're going to bring in Flacco, game manage their way to handing it back over to Burrow if he even comes back at all in a couple months. What an uncreative choice, and a choice that can just no longer spin it anymore. An adequate arm, but not a creative arm. This is just shaping up so perfect for your Pittsburgh Steelers. Mistakes across the board from division rivals, and the Steelers are ready to dig in. A little more about Flacco, right? He spent 11 seasons in Baltimore. He helped define one of football's most heated rivalries, right? Now he is in Bengals stripes instead of Ravens purple. Well past his prime. And this is more like ESPN headlines, something for me to talk about. It is not going to improve this team. I actually think that it's going to make it worse. It might help the running game a little bit. It might help some confidence in the receivers a little bit, having a guy that can actually get them the ball accurately, but he's not going to move the ball down the field. This offense is no longer going to be explosive. And also, the Bengals egregiously mishandled their defense, waiting till the last second to sign Trey Hendrickson to a contract with really nothing else there to support him. The Bengals are cooked, and we get to take advantage of that, right? Absolutely desperate. Understandable move to add Flacco. I admire them a little bit by actually doing something. But I was listening to Good Morning Football this morning, and Kyle Brandt, he suggested it's an uninspired choice. Why not get somebody like Jameis Winston that's just sitting there wasting away? At least he would give you an explosive element on offense. He would probably throw as many picks as Browning, but man, this is a guy that will wing it for 500 yards a game if you need him to. I think that would have been a way better choice. Instead, they chose to be conservative, and their result is going to be a lost season. So let's kind of look at this a little bit more. We're kind of looking at, let's hear what Mike Tomlin had to say. He preaches the importance of keeping the main thing the main thing. Also, the Steelers can't afford to get distracted by what these other teams are doing. But I think we all know that Flacco cannot carry the water. I think we know that we did a very good job from our front office bolstering the backup quarterback position. Mason Rudolph is there. In case of fire, we can break glass and probably still be pretty okay. So kind of talking about Mike Tomlin, he's telling everyone to not get too caught up in the standings in early October. Pittsburgh has gone through injuries, but are now getting pretty darn healthy. And this is what Tomlin has to say. I don't care what happened with other people, particularly last weekend. He's talking about the other teams too. It's about us coming off the bye, getting ready for our game this week. I'm not a big picture guy. The little picture's looking good though, right? Cornerback Joey Porter Jr., his hamstring, he could be back for the first time since the opener. Alex Highsmith, he's due. He practiced on Monday. He's due to come back, and we'll see how bad Jalen Ramsey's hamstring is. We'll see how bad Calvin Austin's shoulder is. There are rumors, kind of some hints that they might be back as soon as this weekend, and that would be awesome. Tomlin, he's not going to publicly admit that he was keeping tabs on Pittsburgh's rivals, but he acknowledged that his players are. I was watching every AFC North game I watched. Highsmith, this is from Alex Highsmith. It was nice to see those teams lose this week, so we got to take advantage of it. Oh yeah, by the way, the Pittsburgh Steelers moved up in the standings in their division by not even playing a game. Everybody lost. So cool. And the Steelers now are looking at facing Cleveland and Cincinnati in the span of 5 days over the next 2 weeks. If they can navigate that successfully, I think they will. You're looking at 5-1 to start the year while dealing losses to two bitter rivals. Tomlinson, he remains wary, but he's paid to be wary, right? He's paid to be pessimistic, to keep this team focused. Let's hear kind of the last thing from Mike Tomlin. At this stage of the game, man, it's about getting better. Probably the main thing that he's talking about is Pittsburgh's efficiency in the red zone. The Steelers are converting nearly 70% of their trips inside the opponent's 20-yard line into touchdowns. That's a really good thing. That can be improved. What can be improved is the frequency of red zone opportunities, because that percentage doesn't really figure into the fact that they haven't been into the red zone that often. And converting at a 70% rate is really good, though. Pittsburgh's only injury problem right now is Calvin Austin's shoulder. Really uncomfortable plane ride back, but he's been seen without a sling. Maybe he will be back quite soon. But Tomlin, he is stressing that Wilson, talking about Roman Wilson in particular, his lack of participation has more to do with the personnel packages the Steelers are using on a week-to-week basis than any step backward in his improvement. So part of this, you're reading between the lines, he's setting the stage for more involvement from Roman Wilson if Austin can't play. It's still early in this process. We've got 13 straight games ahead of us, so keep watching, everybody. You guys have been awesome. Keep watching here as well. If this is fun, if this is informative, if it's just something to watch that inspires you to be positive about your favorite team, hit the subscribe button. Would love to have you a part of this community, and it's growing quickly. So blessed. I'll continue to be here on a day-to-day basis with an outsider's view, a non-fan view of your Pittsburgh Steelers. I hope it's fruitful. You guys are awesome, and we'll talk tomorrow. See ya.